everybody. I hope you're having a wonderful day today. Happy day 10 of March Makeup Madness. And I do realize some of these videos are out of order. I did record another video yesterday and I have yet to get that up, so stay tuned for that. Sorry for the glasses. I'm having a really hard time seeing. I know my hair is screwy. Just please bear with me. But today I did want to talk about, as promised, the Sephora Pantone Color Correct Palette in medium dark. I did just get this in and I have been playing around with it, and I wanted to do a brief review and talk through of this guy. So just as a caveat to begin with, I wanted to just state that by no means am I an expert in deep or dark skin tones, obviously, but I thought it would be only appropriate to discuss the medium dark palette since I did already review the light to medium palette. Again, I did already pre-swatch these shades on my arm and I have had them on for about 2 hours to see how they wear. This palette comes in the box with the Pantone squares, has your information down here. The pans are the same size as the light medium palette, so they are each 0.04 ounces times 15, so there is a total of 0.6 ounces of product in this palette altogether. And then on the back here, you have your shades, and in this little box is your color corrector shades, and then these are your concealer shades. And this palette is obviously a little bit different from the light to medium palette because you have 6 color corrector shades and 9 concealer shades, as opposed to 7 color corrector shades and 8 concealer shades. This palette is also made in the USA. This palette also includes this wonderful booklet, pamphlet, leaflet of all the shades in both English and French. On the first page, you have your shades. And again, these all have the Pantone numbers here, and on the box has the Pantone numbers and the names. And then of course they threw in their 1 through 15 numbering system. So it is my same minor con as with the light to medium palette, that I just think they're throwing out way too many numbers and names, and I really think that they should have probably just stuck with the Pantone numbers because there are people who know the Pantone numbering system, and I just feel like that would have been more consistent, especially throughout both palettes, because on both palettes you have a 1 through 15 numbering system. And also this first shade here is a repeat shade, so it's a little tricky. I don't really like that. So these are your shades, and of course I will run through them with you again, and I will run through the color correction shades and what each of them is meant to accomplish. In this booklet, you have 3 pages for skin concerns that you would color correct or conceal or both for. The first one is for dark circles, and here it shows for tan skin, medium deep skin, and deep skin, the colors you should use for dark circles. The next page is for hyperpigmentation, tan skin, medium deep skin, and deep skin. And then the last page, and mine's kind of all crinkly, I don't know why, but this page is for dullness and brightening. And again, you have your tan skin, medium deep skin, and deep skin. And it also tells you, which I did not mention in my first review, not only which shades you should use, but how to apply them and what kind of brushes that they recommend you to use. So I really think this is an incredibly helpful pamphlet, and I really suggest if you are new to color correcting, you do start here because this is incredibly helpful. So regarding the palette, it is in the same kind of white packaging, and this is a hard white plastic, again with the silver logos on there, and on the back is your information. Pops open like that, there's a little click shut, and inside you have this big mirror here which does stand up on its own, so you can adjust it to where you would like it and use it that way, which is always great for palettes. Inside this palette as well, there is one of these plastic sheets which covers the shades, and it tells you where the color corrector shades are and the concealer shades are, what number each one is using the 1 through 15 numbering system, and then what each color corrector shade is supposed to do. So I'm going to run through these with you, and I'm going to do them in the order I swatched them, which is not the same order as the 1 through 15 numbering because they do number them this way. So I'm going to talk about them vertically instead. So that first color, which is that yellow shade, is a repeat shade, and that is to brighten. The color under that is to eliminate dark circles and dark spots. The color under that, which is actually more of an orange color, as you can see on my skin, is that third shade, is to brighten and neutralize dark circles and dark spots. And then onto the second row, that dark shade is to eliminate dark circles and dark spots. And you can see that's kind of like a brownish reddish color. The one under that is to eliminate dark circles and dark spots. This color here, it looks more red in the pan. I think it's actually more of a deep orange or a deep salmon color, that one above the red. And then finally, you have the red shade, which is to brighten and neutralize dark circles and dark spots. And that shows up very, very red on the skin. Now, I did want to talk about these color correctors before I move on to the rest of the palette. There are only 6 color correcting shades in this palette, and you can see those shades on the skin. They are highly pigmented, and I really do like them. Today, I was actually doing some comparisons with these colors to see how comparable they are with other color correcting palettes that are out on the market, and I did find that these shades are almost identical to the MAC Studio Conceal and Correct Palette in medium deep, and I did print that out so you can look at that. But you can see the colors are very, very, very similar. And this palette by MAC is a $40 palette, whereas this is, again, a $49 palette. So essentially, you're getting all the MAC color correction shades plus 9 concealers, which comes out to $1 a concealer if you were to subtract the $40 for the color correcting shades. If you take that into consideration, I also think this is a really good deal. I did want to kind of reiterate that I really do feel that Sephora and Pantone should have done a set of 3 color correction and concealing palettes. The first one definitely is more of a fair to light palette, and this, as you can see, is definitely more of a deeper palette. And of course, both the light and the deeper palette have some medium shades thrown in there, but I do find that kind of problematic. I do feel that they should have done just a medium palette because there are so many people with medium kinds of skin tones. If they had done that, they could have put more light shades in the lighter palette and more dark to deep shades in the darker palette, as opposed to, you know, kind of just throwing in some medium shades in both the palettes. As you can see, this is the only kind of red. I wish they had done a light red / pink, because I do know that works very well for color correcting, especially dark circles and hyperpigmentation. With the orange and salmon tones, you could probably mix this yellow in with most of these other shades and lighten them up if that's something you needed to do. One of my recommendations is that if you don't think this is a great orange, and I don't think it's a great orange for covering a lot of space on your face just because of the consistency of these color correctors, but one that I do recommend and that I do use myself is the LA Girl Pro Conceal called Orange Corrector. There we go. And you can pick this up on Amazon for like $2, so I do suggest that. Another shade I wish they had included in the color correction in this palette would be kind of a lavender shade, just because I know there are a lot of people, especially of Mediterranean origin or ethnicity, who have a lot of yellowy patches or sallowness in their skin, and a lavender tone would help correct some of that if that's something that you are looking to do. And that is not a color you could make in this palette either. Those are kind of 3 shades that I wish that they had included in this palette. Another suggestion I do have is that you could pick up the NYX Color Correct Contour palettes, and this is the light palette. And this is the dark palette by NYX that has a wider variety of brownish salmon colors and a lighter orange and a deeper yellow, which is another issue I have kind of here, although the lighter yellow can help you if you need to lighten any of these shades. I do wish that they had included a little bit of a deeper yellow, just because the level of pigmentation a color corrector needs to have in order to do its job depends on your skin tone. So if you have a lighter skin tone, a light yellow would work very well. But if you have a much deeper skin tone, that light yellow is going to show up like a white on your skin. So I do wish that they had made that a little bit darker in this palette as opposed to just repeating the shade from the light palette. And just as a comparison, I will swatch this one above that for you so you can see it. You can see that the yellow from the NYX Deep palette is a much darker yellow. And I do feel that that would be a much more appropriate shade for color correcting in deep skin tones. So those are some issues I do have with these color correctors. So if you personally use or think you would need additional color correcting shades in addition to these 6 included in this palette, not the NYX one, please leave me a comment below. I would just really like to hear from you what works for you, what you use, just so I know more and I can give you guys better advice. So moving on to the concealer shades in this palette, try not to blind you. You can see that they are definitely darker, and I think the pigmentation in a lot of these shades is absolutely beautiful. And I did draw that line again there between the color correcting shades and the concealer shades. Although I do think the shades do appear slightly lighter on the skin than they do in the palette. Yeah, another issue I have is that, again, nowhere in any of the packaging does it specify if the concealer shades are cool or warm toned, and you can kind of tell on the skin. And I do think that with the darker palette, you can blend these shades together more easily than with a lighter palette and kind of customize a shade that might be perfect for you. These shades do all look like they could mix well together. Another issue I actually have with the concealers in the medium dark palette is that the more pigmented shades are actually oilier, and I don't really know why that is. Of course, I'm not a makeup chemist or creator, but I do have other dark corrector palettes, and the consistencies between the lighter palettes and the darker palettes seem to be pretty universal. But with these shades, you can definitely tell the deeper and more pigmented shades are definitely greasier than the lighter shades, and I find that slightly problematic as well. I do know personally some of my friends from the Caribbean, they do have very oily kind of skin. And I just feel like it's kind of goofy that they would make the darker shades oilier. And even if you did have dry skin, like, why would you make the shades a different consistency? I feel like they should all be the same consistency. Of course, there are a couple of tricks you could use to fix that problem. The first trick, of course, would be to use an oil blotting cloth or sheets. And I have also found that as soon as you apply these, and I know this is like applying quite a bit, like you probably wouldn't apply that much on your face, but if you were to take a beauty blender or whatever kind of cosmetic sponge you have, I don't know if you can see, that's a little greasy right there, but if you just tap this very lightly over that, it does take a little bit of the oiliness out and into the beauty blender or sponge. So I hope that's a helpful tip for you guys. Let me know in the comments below if you have tried these and if they are oily for you and if something like that does work or not. So I did want to run through the names of these with you guys just really quickly. And again, I'm not going to use the numbers just because there are so many numbers and it does get a little bit confusing, but you can tell by the color. That first yellow, ignoring the NYX one, the light yellow, is called Impala. The shade under that is called Cork, and that's kind of, it's like a light salmon color. The color under that, which is like a true orange, is called Branded Melon. Then the darker color under there is called Mink. The kind of reddish salmon color there is called Picante. And then finally the last color correcting shade, which is that very bright red, is called Goji Berry. So on to the concealer colors. And really you could probably use some of these concealer colors, especially the caramelly kind of colors, as color correctors for hyperpigmentation or dark circles. But that first color is called Pecan Brown. The shade under that is called Rawhide. Then a little bit deeper shade there is called Mocha Bisque. Then under that, the kind of caramelly color, and it's a little bit sandy, is called Lion. And then that brownish color is called Mustang. And again, these do look deeper in the palette than they do on my skin. The deeper brown under that is called Potting Soil. The color under the deep brown is called Burrow. And then the caramelly color under that is called Thrush. And then finally, that very beautiful dark shade is called Chicory Coffee. So those are the shade names. And again, I just wanted to show you the shades in the palette. And these are the shades. Those are the first three, the second three, and especially that middle one there. It looks so much lighter on my skin than it does in the palette. And then the last three. And I feel like those all look lighter as well. Now, as opposed to the light to medium palette, I do feel that the highlight of this particular palette is the concealer shades. I think they are absolutely beautiful. I think the pigmentation is spot on, and I really think that if you need to customize a color, if any one of these is not exactly a perfect match for your skin, you could easily blend some of these colors together to come up with something that's perfect for you. And I don't feel like you can do that so much with the light to medium palette. So I do think that this is worth the $49 because you get these comparable, if not almost identical to the MAC Conceal Correct shades, and then you get all of these beautiful concealer shades on top of it. And I really do think the concealer shades are spot on. I think they're beautiful. The only thing I think they could have done better, again, is to not make them so oily. And you can even see in the pan how they look a little bit more oily. You can see this yellow, which is obviously the lightest color in the palette, is definitely less greasy than even the brown next to it, or especially these deeper brown tones. And I just kind of have a problem with that. Let me know down below if you have a problem with that, or if you don't really mind, if that's something that you work with. Again, I have used many kinds of darker concealer and color correcting palettes, and I've never really encountered a difference in formulation between lighter and darker shades before. Also, I did want to mention that very similarly to the light to medium palette, these also do dry fairly quickly, so you also do want to work with them fairly quickly. Also, they are very creamy, so I do recommend you use something like a glitter glue, any kind of eyeshadow primer under your eyes or wherever you're going to color correct, just because I have noticed it does help with some of the creasing issues. And again, I did use that on my face, and I did use these color correction shades on my face today. They are easily covered up by your regular makeup. I just used my Etude House Any Cushion, which is just a very light cushion foundation, over these shades, and it did cover them as well. If you would like me to do a video of how I color correct and conceal using something like this, comment below and let me know, because I would be more than happy to do a video. So I really hope that was a helpful video for you guys regarding the Sephora Pantone Correct and Conceal Palette in medium dark. Again, this is available at Sephora and Sephora.com. I will leave the link below, and I really hope that helped you decide if this is something you want to pick up. Again, I really think it is worth the $49, and I really like these concealer shades better than the ones in the light palette. Personally, I do think both of these palettes are worth purchasing, and I am actually very glad that I do have both of them, because like I said, I do use quite a few of these kind of color correcting shades on my face every day. So those are my thoughts and my review on the medium dark correct and conceal palette from Sephora and Pantone Universe. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. I would really like to hear from you guys, especially those of you who have darker or deeper skin tones, what you think of this palette, and if it's something that you think you might pick up. Also, I would just like to hear your opinion, what you think of this shade range, and if you think they should have made a third palette like I do. As always, thank you so much for your time and for watching, as well as for your support. I really appreciate it so much. I really enjoy doing this, and I really hope it is helpful for you. Also, if you have not yet subscribed, please do so, because I am making a video every day in March for March Makeup Madness. Also, as a subscriber, you are eligible to enter my 6 giveaways, which are open through March 31st, 2016, and I will leave my official entry video below in the description as well. I just hope you're all having a wonderful, happy, and healthy day, and I will see you tomorrow for March Makeup Madness. Have a great one, everybody.